Stand by to receive our transmission.
Where are you boys from in the world?
Alabama, sir.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Welcome to the Bama Geeks podcast. We are four friends diving into our favorite pop culture topics with a dash of Southern charm.
We have the tools, we have talent. It's Miller time.
Whoa, this is heavy.
Pizza dude's got 30 seconds.
Wait, what? Crazy? You didn't say I was crazy.
You got the wrong guy. I'm the dude, man.
You want something done, you've got to do it yourself.
Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes!
So grab your biscuits and gravy, a glass of sweet tea, and enjoy the nerdy hospitality of Brock and Jessica Parker, Bo Bearden, and Kevin Gardner.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Every town has an Elm Street. Hi, welcome into the Bama Geeks. You know exactly what we're going to be talking about this episode because Halloween is almost here, and we're going to just talk about one of our favorite horror franchises because 'tis the season. Hope you're doing well. I'm Brock Parker. With me, as always,
it's Kevin.
Hey, it's Jessica.
Once again, I'm still here. It's Bo.
And he's not asleep. We're not in his dreams right now.
Or sure about that? Yeah.
Somebody set the alarm.
We're all wide awake.
So yeah, we're going to talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street, the entire franchise. We've all got recent viewings, and of course, we've seen these movies for a lot of years. And so some of us have some personal stories. I've got one that I cannot wait to share. But we'll get into that in just a minute. If you're not seeing us on social media a whole lot, which, by the way, is at Bama Geeks, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. But if you're not seeing us on social media a whole lot, it's because about a week ago, well, as of this recording, so for you listening to this, has probably been a couple of weeks. New York City Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, we had some friends go up there and went to the Ghostbusters panel with Ivan and Jason Reitman and the cast, the new cast of Ghostbusters, not the OG guys. They did not make an appearance, but they did a panel while they were up there. And all of a sudden, in a room full of 2,000 people, Jason says, "Hey, you guys have been patient enough. Please don't spoil anything. Here's the movie."
What?
Yeah. So we have some friends who have seen Ghostbusters Afterlife. They are very good friends because they are not saying a doggone word about any of it. However, in a room of 2,000 people, there's going to be some people who are keyboard happy and want to talk about it and spoil it. So most of us have made the conscious decision to stay the heck off of social media. I have not seen my personal Facebook page in about a week. Actually, no.
Yeah, this is
about 9 days. Yeah.
And I was not too far behind you there, Brock.
Just don't want to take any chances. I mean, as soon as we start kind of feeling safe that we get back on there, something's going to pop up, I feel. So, and you know what? This hasn't been actually a terrible thing to take a little bit of a break.
Yeah, it's actually been really nice. We were talking about that pre-show. It's been quite liberating, mental health.
Quiet.
Yeah, it's been terribly quiet. Not terribly. It's been awesomely quiet. I haven't been on Twitter outside of my work accounts, and I did sneak back onto Instagram. I feel that's the safest, but I'm not spending any time on it. I'm posting things once in a blue moon, and then I'm jumping off. I don't want to take any chances.
Yeah.
Facebook,
you and I have the same strategy with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Facebook, I'm avoiding. I'm not even, you can share things off Instagram to Facebook. I'm not even doing that. I don't want people to get the idea that I'm on there because I'm not going to lie. I get anxiety when I see all these notifications pop up on my phone. I hate phone notifications. I hate for my phone to light up. I hate to see that little red dot that tells me I've got a notification. Hate it. I've not had that this week. It's been wonderful. But yeah, we're staying off social media until we see Ghostbusters Afterlife for the most part. So, yeah, the Bama Geeks accounts are kind of suffering because of that, because I'm not touching it and none of us are touching them. But, you'll see us. You'll see us.
Yeah, we love you guys. We absolutely love you guys, but we also don't want to be spoiled by the movie. This movie is incredibly important to pretty much all of us here.
Oh, yeah.
And, obviously we want to go into it fresh, the same as we all went into watching the movie fresh when we were younger. So we don't want to be spoiled. And as you guys know, at this day and age on the internet, it is very, very easy to get trolls who like to do that.
And this is a serious thing when the Interdimensional Cross Rip podcast has decided to take a hiatus. Christopher Stewart and Troy Benjamin.
Yeah, they put their podcast on hiatus because they didn't want to go down the rabbit hole of trying to chase news for fear of finding something out. Those guys did it 6 years straight, never missing a week.
Yeah.
And they said, bye.
This is a very weird, side effect of them showing that, you would think they would want all the hype leading up to it coming from every angle. And then, as you said, like a lot of folks, I'm still hanging out on social media. I've had to mute a couple of people because around the time that I know that everybody was talking about Avoid the International trailer. Well, someone posted an image from it. While it wasn't nothing storyline wise spoilery, it was an image that would have looked a heck of a lot cooler seeing on the screen versus then a bad cam shot on. So I've gone and started muting people for the next 30 days.
The same. I saw that same image from the same person, and I love him, but he got snoozed for 30 days, even though I'm not on it. No.
Yeah. And this person has always also made it known that he doesn't care. He wants spoilers. He don't care.
We have several,
spoil. And
we have several friends who say, bring on the spoilers, and that's fine for you, but that's my cue to exit. I'm gone.
Yeah.
But, this movie is something we've been waiting for more than 30 years. This is the sequel that, from what we're hearing, is the sequel that we have wanted. And so I take no chances. I mean, I really hate social media anyway, even though I'm on there all the time. I have to be because of work and because of, hobbies like this. And I definitely want to keep up with friends, but deep down, I hate social media. I despise it. And this is giving me a break, and I'm going to enjoy it.
It's worth that peace of mind.
Yeah.
For the time
social
being.
media was fun when it first started, but these past few years, it's gone downhill tremendously for me.
And we could really go down a rabbit hole of talking about this, but
yeah,
we would really like to talk about Freddie with you guys.
Yes.
Let's put the social media talk to sleep.
Oh, good one. Yes.
Nice.
So we're going to get into the fun stuff. We're going to get into my all-time favorite horror franchise. I do not care if you think it was cheesy, if it's not as scary as it once started out. I don't care. I love Freddy Krueger. I adore this villain. Yes. He's my all-time favorite horror villain. And we're just going to discuss the entire franchise, because why not?
Sure.
So, Nightmare on Elm Street came out 1984. Came out the same year as our topic we just stopped talking about. So, it was a good year. But Wes Craven had a wonderful idea. Apparently, he had read an article, I think it was the Los Angeles Times.
Yes.
Where he had read an article about people dying in their sleep and dying in their dreams and dying in real life. And so that kind of gave him the inspiration for A Nightmare on Elm Street. And it turns out that there was a guy who used to bully him named Freddy Krueger.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there you go. Take your bully and make him famous.
Well, and not only was there that bully, he also tells the story of a guy that he would seen roaming his neighborhood. Older guy, had a hat on, just had that very creepy presence. And he told a story where one night he heard the guy passing by the house. So he sticks his head out the window and he makes eye contact with the guy. And he'll tell you he ducked down. And he waited, hoping that the guy had passed by. He popped his head back up to look out the window, and the guy was still just staring right at him. And he said, the way the guy looked at him. He was delighted in the fact that he had kind of caused this. You could tell by the look on the guy's face. He took pleasure in giving that little bit of fear to him as well.
And I'm sure preying on people's fear, because I mean, essentially the time you are most vulnerable is when you're asleep.
Exactly.
I mean, that's
yeah. You're in a situation, you have no control, you're vulnerable. Exactly. What better way to come at somebody?
Yeah, especially since science has really never been able to explain yet why we actually sleep. It's this big unknown anyway. So yeah, I mean, being able to attack us in that point where we're the most vulnerable, that's probably why I like Freddy the most. It was a concept that, I don't know, I'm sure it had been explored before in horror movies, but no one has really ever done it like Freddy.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't know anything really about A Nightmare on Elm Street back in that time because, I was too young to see it. But I think around the time that A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 came out, Dream Warriors, that was the first time I saw it. And it was because I was in middle school and had gone over to a friend's house, and he had the first 3 on VHS, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to watch this?" And I'm like, I'm not supposed to, parents are watching this stuff. He's like, "That's okay." So we stayed up watching those 3 movies all night, and that was not a good idea being that young. That's where I was automatically hooked. It was in the late 80s when I first saw those 3 movies, and golly, even my mom bought me. I think we were at a gas station, and they had like this little bitty Freddy figure that had a suction cup. The suction cup, you could stick it to the window, had a string hanging down, and Freddy would swing back and forth. And she bought that for me. She's like, "I really don't approve of this." I'm like, "Yeah, but he looks neat." and that began my obsession with him. But yeah, Freddy and I'll just hit you with some trivia right off the bat. Yeah, we're going to slightly touch on the remake, which should have never been made. But Jackie Earle Haley, the story is Jackie Earle Haley, who played Freddy in the reboot, actually took Johnny Depp to his audition, and he also auditioned for the original role of Freddy. So kind of I guess he got his wish so many years later to play Freddy. He did okay. It was just the story was, yeah. But yeah, I didn't find that out till a few nights ago. We were watching a special on the movies, and yeah, Jackie Earle Haley tried out in the mid 80s for Freddy Krueger. But that also was Johnny Depp's first movie appearance.
Yes.
It was Nightmare on Elm Street. And let's just get into let's talk about that movie. Let's talk about the first one, and just how that one was scary.
Yeah, it was. Yes.
Well, that one for sure set the stage. That's the one that defined Freddy. That's the one that all hooked us, and just how the story doesn't just like start with it. It kind of flows into it, and then you just start seeing things happening. Just the way that he set the whole movie up, that was what kind of got me. And I mean, granted, I was, let's see, how old was I? I'm gonna show my age here a little bit. I was 4 when that came out. So, obviously didn't see it when I was 4. I didn't see it till a little bit later, but yeah, that was an incredibly scary experience for a kid, knowing that, oh my God, now, we've seen all kinds of scary movies. Oh, great. Now we've got somebody who can attack me when I'm sleeping. What the heck, man?
As if I didn't already have enough nightmares in my life. Now I got to worry about the possibility of seeing being scared by watching a movie about a guy that can kill me when I'm asleep. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And specifically, all his targets are children or teenage folks.
Right.
I think I was like 13 or 14 when I saw the first movie. So like I said, that would be 1992, 93. So I mean, heck, the franchise was essentially almost over by the time I saw the first movie. But I didn't watch a whole lot of horror movies when I was younger. I watched a few in my teenage years. I would say before we get into it, up until me rewatching the newer movies, I'd only seen the first and second movie.
Yeah.
And the second movie has probably been around the time I was 15 last time I saw it. So this was all a new, fresh experience or a reintroduction, especially for the first two movies. But yeah, that first movie, like you said, a lot of the iconic imagery is all introduced. The house, which to me, like that's something as the series goes on, the house becomes its own character.
Right.
But like I said, we'll get to that. Yeah.
I was talking to Jess yesterday about that house and how it would be kind of, because we're eventually going to build our forever home. And I was like, why don't we at least have the front porch area that looks like that?
I'm not opposed to it.
I think you guys are borrowing trouble.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. There's a house down in Auburn, Alabama that actually looks like the Nightmare on Elm Street house. I love that house. It went up for sale while I was living down there and didn't have plans to buy another house at that time. So didn't pursue it, but I would have loved to have it because it's a 2-story and the doorway, everything, it's identical to the original Nightmare house.
Yeah, I was really shocked when you had told me, Bo, about the fact that you had never seen you had not even seen anything past part 2. Because I was just thinking that's just wild to think that, being that the movies are what they are and they're popular and the franchise is what it is. So I was really shocked to hear that.
Yeah, well, like I don't know, like I said, I like horror movies, but it was like not one of those things like I've got to watch a horror movie or nothing. I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's like I trying not to get too far ahead, but yeah. Like I said, I've seen the first one. Like probably the last time up until I'd watched the first movie, since we're talking about it, was I watched up until here recently. I watched the first time I watched this. I was a teenager. I watched at Brock's house that time when he got the Blu-ray set, and we watched it that one time. I crashed over. I was like, "Oh man, you got this on Blu-ray? I got to check this out on Blu-ray." You know, it was like,
we had I guess I probably trying to think when I can't remember the exact point that I ever saw the first movie, but if I had to kind of go back in my memory, I'm going to say, honestly, I could have been about maybe, I would dare to say 8 or 9 years old when I saw the first one. Because
that's young.
Well, because we're just in the neighborhood and your friends and everything, you started getting to that point where everybody wanted to get together and watch scary movies. And I can't say for certain, but if I had to guess, I would say that I was probably around 8 or 9 years old when I was exposed to part 1 and part 2. Then the reason why I say that, not to jump ahead too far, was because I saw part 3 in the theaters in 1987 when I was 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
My aunt took me to see that movie. So that's why I'm going back to that part of my age, because I was already pretty familiar, a fan of Freddy and the Nightmare movies. So, hey, I'm just going to take you to see the movie at 10 years old, rated R. But I had an adult with me, so all's good.
So you said you saw the first one.
Well, all was good with the theater for me to go see it.
So what was that like for someone so young? Like, did you see it with friends, like you said?
Yes, it was with friends, because you would get together with your friends with your slumber parties and things like that. Of course, it's all about staying up late and watching movies. And I guess from what I can remember, what I can recall, that's kind of where I think that I got introduced to start watching horror movies, whether it be Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th or Halloween, things like that. I even think I started watching Carrie at some point during that time frame.
This is why we get along.
Good old kid slumber parties. Yeah.
Do you remember if it gave you nightmares?
I don't know. Maybe it did.
I think I was 10 or 11 when I first saw the first 3 movies. Mm-hmm. When, like I said, I was in middle school. So I was 10 coming out of 5th grade. So yeah, probably 11.
Mm-hmm.
Is when I saw the first 3. And I did have nightmares. I do remember that. But I loved them. I was hooked.
Well, the first movie is my favorite, hands down. I guess because, nothing beats the original. Yeah. The original story. Or the original telling of the story and how it started out. The character, Nancy, just, to me, she is hands down the best horror movie female character of all time.
I'll say it works good because it comes back to, like I said, we'll get to it later, especially like with New Nightmare, Yeah, like Nancy, like it was like, let's say she was the, she was the cliche, not really the cliche damsel in distress, but she was the object of Freddy's, attempt to try to kill, but essentially, she wasn't always technically harmless. She was always fighting him or finding ways with her friends and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a strong female.
Well, that's
yeah. I mean, that's the big deal in a horror flick. That was a good strong female lead. That was awesome.
Well, that's like that outside of the second movie, which we'll get to here in a minute. But the whole entire series is a very strong female driven series. Like as me rewatching the whole entire series, I was like, man, this is like, that's cool. Where people talk about nowadays where we needed more of that stuff. There was that stuff there. You just wasn't paying attention to it, I think.
Right.
Yeah. There wasn't nearly as much as you had male leads, but it was definitely there, and it was very prominent, especially when you looked in the horror franchise like that. That was huge.
And Nancy, not only, I don't feel like she was just putting up the fight for herself. She was also, fighting for her friends and to help to keep them alive as well.
But being that so many females, and I'm just saying this because it's the 80s and not implying anything, but there were so many female leads, and Freddie's favorite word is female dog. He says that word more than any other word in the entire franchise, I think.
But I think it's an antagonizing word for a series with a female driven like lead character who's combating him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That might be, outside of, him, tearing reality, that word, could be his big comeback type thing. You know what I mean?
He says it an awful lot. That was one thing I was noticing the other night was when we were going back through it. I'm like, he really does use that word quite a bit.
Yeah. But I wouldn't expect anything less from him.
Yeah.
To use that against a female at the whole point, his whole thing is, one thing about Freddie is that he knows that, he can get killed. He can kill you instantly and immediately, but he delights in the antagonizing or in, in the fear that he is trying to cause within that victim to antagonize them to that point.
Yep.
He's like a little cat too. He's, he
plays
with his victims before he kills it.
And because he's got claws.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those claws, claws are just an extension of that evil and that anger.
I've never really thought of it that way, that he was like a cat, but that actually makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. That's a really, really good comparison.
It is.
Because he's kind of he just likes to play with his victims.
Yeah.
And he wants to kill you just like cats. Cats are murderous. I'm sorry.
And
hey, I'm a big cat fan. I've had cats, and I will absolutely agree. Yeah, yeah, they do want to kill you.
Mm-hmm. He's not wrong. Anything. We have 2 in our household too, so he's not wrong.
Well,
you plotting on me, boy?
Well, let's get into kind of the meat of this franchise and how it starts off in this first movie, and what it basically comes down to is the children paying for the sins of their parents. And you watch how Nancy's parents, in particular, they're realizing that their actions in the past are now contributing to the deaths and what's going on with their own children. When Wes Craven his whole mindset is what's one of the worst things that you can possibly be? Someone that harms a child, someone that that was the first movie. Of course, it was touched that Freddie was a child killer, but we know that Freddie was actually more than just a child killer. Mm-hmm. And that storyline died down a little bit because I think at the same time that they were filming this, there was a big national news story going on about some pretty disgusting things that were going on with some faculty at a school. And they felt like, well, we need to pull back on that particular, I'm going to go ahead and say it, child molester storyline. He's a child killer. No. And being that, the vigilante justice of these parents at that time, they took it into their own hands. They killed this guy. So his revenge, he's full on revenge now. So what is he going to do? You took that from me. I'm going to take what you love the most. I'm going to come back for your children.
it's kind of weird because like essentially the thing they did to protect their children wound up creating the greatest threat to their children.
Exactly.
Yep.
And this is why you see Nancy's mother dive deep into her alcohol addiction within this movie, is that she's realizing that her sins are now causing this to her child.
And of course, they always are looking for a way to get rid of Freddie. He's in their dreams. How do you get rid of somebody that haunts your dreams?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, that's where you learn that you can bring Freddie into the real world. And that's how you take care of business with him. But what was the budget? About $1 million? I think they said it was about $1 million for the first movie. And so they did quite a bit with the practical effects, for that. They built the big room where it was Tina, the girl that was,
yes.
You see her as the camera is staying still, you see her going up the walls and on the ceiling and everything else. And they built a big rig. Mm-hmm. They built the room on this big rig that they turned by hand in circular patterns to get her to go. But the camera was mounted where, it was a static mount. So
yeah,
they did that. And then, the scene where Freddie's coming over Nancy's bed as he's stretching through the wall, that was just a sheet. So, they had to do a lot of really neat practical effects. Like when Nancy's going up the stairs at one point, she's stepping in, oatmeal and
yeah,
that goop, whatever. Yeah.
It was an oatmeal. So, they made a lot of great practical effects for such a small budget.
And really, New Line Cinema just basically took a chance on this because this script had been turned down everywhere. Nobody wanted to touch it.
Yeah, and that's why New Line is called the house that Freddie built.
That's right.
Yep.
They took a gamble and it paid off in a big way for them.
And of course, the insane amount of blood they used for the death of Johnny Depp's character. Wow! Like I don't know. What do we know? Was it the blood colored water or the corn syrup type thing? But that is like the whole entire movie. And I'm sure everybody, even the most casual person who's never watched the movie, knows that scene. That's our age group. Like everybody's seen that visual one way. To me, that's the one thing that sticks out from that movie that I'll always remember.
It's very iconic, and they used the same revolving room as they did in Tina's death to create that effect. And one thing they said was, they had to get it in one shot. It was a one shot. We got to get this done. And when they poured, the liquid through, it ended up the lighting and the electrical. They said that the guy that was actually pouring the water down into the hole got electrocuted because of that situation. And then they didn't take into account how the weight was going to shift. So they said that it was kind of the room was shifting because of the weight, but they got it in that one shot and that was it.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So and then at first they were going to have Johnny Depp's body come back up through the hole and just like fall splat on the bed. So that's the scene that ended up getting cut out. And another one originally in the storyline of the first movie, as we learned later on, that Nancy supposedly had one of the kids that Freddie killed when he went on his spree was one of Nancy's older sibling. So that was like a kind of, I really wish they would have kept that in the storyline, but for some reason they just felt like cutting that as well too. Because to me it made more, it's like her fight against Freddie made it that more memorable. It was more prevalent to the storyline.
Mm-hmm. The first Elm Street movie was supposed to be the only one. There was no plans for a sequel whatsoever. In fact, Wes Craven stepped away from directing the second movie. And Bo, I want to hear your take on the Freddy's Revenge and Nightmare on Elm Street 2. This movie is known by a certain genre and certain circles.
Yeah, there's a lot of this was, like I said, I watched it, but I didn't remember it that well. I remember things from it, but rewatching this one's very interesting. We have friends we know they refer to it as a different lifestyle one, which that's fine. Everybody do everybody, but there is I don't know if that was the intention when they made that movie, but there's a lot of first of all, these are supposed to be high school teenage kids. And I'm pretty sure the average cast age for the kids were 25 I swear. And it's very apparent. And then I guess to counteract that these kids are 25, every adult is at least 50 or older. I don't, it's very interesting. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's, you could definitely tell that this, like, they never meant to make another movie, I guess, like you said.
Mm-hmm. But,
like, yes, there's a lot of, like, guys, a lot of things about, remarks about certain clubs. Yeah.
Well, the director has always said that was, he never, when he was filming it, that never clued into him. Yeah. But the guy that wrote it was like, well, yeah, I mean, I was being very, it was very subtle, but I knew what I was doing when I wrote this.
Yeah. Well, like, this is the only one in the series where the main, I guess, victim character is a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they kind of departure, which, I mean, I understand they want it to still be thing, but like, it's called Freddy's Revenge, but isn't kind of the whole series Freddy's Revenge? I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, that's Freddy's that's his whole drive is revenge. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of the things that got me, like, I got to talk about one of the kills of the scene is where the very aggravating coach character that none of the students like, where he gets caught and he gets dragged into the showers, and then apparently he is stripped by Freddie, and then he is repeatedly whipped on his butt by towels.
Mm-hmm.
Like his gluteus maximus in all its glory, as you see all the towel slaps. And then he's clawed in from the inside by Freddie. Other type of thing I'm trying to think, like, this is just a lot of absurd stuff in this movie. It's like, it's not bad, but all right, the scene where the birds, like the family pet birds.
Oh yeah, the oversized parakeet.
Yes, they go ballistic. All right, well, here's the thing about it. They go ballistic, blow up, but one cuts the dad's face. Right. I swear, as each progressing scene, the dad's Band-Aid on his face starts from like one of those little nick Band-Aids to like it's covering half his face by the end of like 15 minutes after the sequence. That, like, I'm sorry, I'm being the one rambling, but like I said, I've got this whole page of thoughts. So let me know when I go crazy. Tell me to be quiet.
Keep going.
But, all right, I'm trying to think. I'm blanking on the main character's name.
Jesse.
Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Jesse was trying to stay awake. All right. Jesse should be more worried about him taking stay awake pills in 1980s Coca-Cola formula to stay awake than Freddie would.
What's the real danger here?
Yeah. Another thing, his best friend Grady, I don't know if he's his friend or not, because they have a really like weird friendship where they're very degrading to each other, but yet they're friends.
Yeah, that also kind of plays into that little subtext too.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's that,
But Grady's bedroom looks like a trapper keeper exploded on the wallpaper. And like, I need to get a screen grab, because there's a great screen grab, but like, because it's very like since 80s horror is so popular, like, why is this not circulated more? But after Freddy explodes out of the body, he stands up, puts his hat on, draws his claw back, and then you've got that trapper keeper background. Like, that's 80s horror right there in a perfect thing.
Oh yeah, totally. That's the whole thing is like, Jesse came to Grady's after not being able to be with Lisa. So of course, they feed into all that too.
The frustration type thing.
Yeah. It's like, cause he made the comment, that he left Lisa's, and Grady says, yeah, and you come here to sleep with me. So
yeah.
But that was the whole thing about this movie is they're trying to tell a new story. Whereas Freddie, he's trying to find that way to kill into the real world, and what better way to do that than to possess someone's body to bring him out, into the real world. And that infamous pool scene has Robert Englund to this day says was absolutely one of the worst scenes that he probably ever did. It made no sense. He didn't understand what was the whole point. It was
whimsical. Yeah. So very like, I guess because he was giving it
whimsical.
I mean, it's comical. Like there's a lot of comical stuff in this series, but like what made me think was since we're kind of getting with part 2. All right, since we're talking about it, I swear I don't know if this is this movie came out. This came out in 85, right, or 86?
85.
85. I swear they took inspiration from Ghostbusters for when the main character, once again, I forgot his name again.
Jesse.
Sorry, Jesse. When he is finally freed of Freddy, and how his body kind of crumbles off like the Terror Dog shell.
Oh,
I don't know if maybe that was inspiration for it. If not, I'm going to say it is because, Ghostbusters fan vision here. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, how they got Freddy to come out of Jesse's body was a really great effect.
It was. It was fantastic.
Man. Watching all these movies and seeing all these practical effects, I would take all these 80s practical effects. I've enjoyed them in any kind of digital effect I've enjoyed in the last 20 years. And even though I know we have friends that work in digital effect, I appreciate your hard work, but practical effects forever, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just because that's what we're child of,
The second movie is where I saw recently an interview with Heather Langenkamp. They were talking about they decided not to bring her back for the second one. And this is kind of where, as you were hinting at earlier, the house comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's right. Yes, the house, the people moved into the house.
Yeah. Everything revolves around the house starting in part 2.
Mm-hmm.
As far as whoever's in that house is who's going to be the target.
Mm-hmm.
Freddy's going after all the kids of Springwood, but
but these had no ties to him, like how the original story was set up in the first movie. None of them, it's not made known, so we're just assuming that none of these particular kids have any ties, but we could be wrong. And we know Jesse, they just moved into the neighborhood. So, his parents had nothing to do with Freddy's death. Now, some of the kids, of course, that he was in school with or that were living in Springwood, their parents very well could have, but the main character's parents had nothing to do with it. He was just Freddy just wanted to use his body as that vessel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Possess and use that to do his killing.
So part 2 ends and we have to wait. When did part 3 come out?
87.
87. So we had to wait a couple of years for part 3, but it was worth the wait. Wes Craven's back involved with it. And we get Nancy. She's back. She's helping all the kids in the hospital.
Well, let me say, I knew I've heard everyone speak very highly of part 3. Like the thing that got me was I was watching when I saw the credits opening. And I saw Dick Cavett and Zsa Zsa Gabor listed in these credits, and I was like, "All right, this is okay."
Yeah, and what a memorable scene that was.
Yeah,
yeah. That's when they got a good budget for it.
Well, they figured they knew they had this money maker on their hands. So, of course, more money. It's kind of like Star Trek: The Next Generation, the 3rd season. We knew we had a hit on our hands, so the money just starts getting better for the budgets.
You can definitely tell, visually. I'll get into it here in a minute, but some reason why this movie did not feel very 80s. I don't know. I got the more 90s movie vibe out of this. I guess because it was that Wes Craven, the more serious tone. After his, I don't know. It's kind of weird if it makes sense. But for me, it felt a little bit ahead of its time. Yeah. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Wes Craven was brought back. He originated the story of it, but New Line kind of didn't like some of the elements of the story that he had brought in. His story was originally darker than what we ended up with. New Line ended up bringing in Frank Darabont and Chuck Russell to help with that storyline. And they kind of brought more imaginative with the dark. So it was like they wanted that balance there.
Well, I'd say that makes sense now because I want to say of all the ones I watched, this was the one that kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies most with the gore and the unsettling images of some of the ways that people died or mutilated. It was I don't know. As I've got older, gore's got really weird with me. I can't handle it. Well, I could say that certain types, zombie stuff, don't bother me. But some of the things like this one, Philip, when he is basically Freddy has him as a marionette with his major veins and arteries.
Yes.
Yeah. That still gets me to this day, man. That still creeps me out.
And the tension and that tension in that scene, you've got all his friends watching him. They cannot do anything to save him.
Yep.
And they knew he was a notorious sleepwalker, but it was still very yeah.
Right.
God. Sorry, getting the creepy skin crawls thinking about it.
Well, there's definitely some memorable effects. In this one, like I said, that one where he's walking with the veins out of his arms. And of course you got the television scene where she's in the break room or the television room.
Common area. Yeah.
Yeah. She's in there and well,
yeah.
not going to repeat the line, but it's one of the most famous Freddy lines. Welcome to prime time. Grabs her off the floor and smashes her head into the television. And then, of course, the guy who was really happy with the nurse. Yeah. His mattress falls away after he's tied up by Freddy's tongues on the bedpost.
I called the tongue pun before he said it. I was like, there's going to be something tongue-tied said by this. And I was great, proven right.
Well, originally, too, that the original idea they had for this scene was that the nurse would turn into Freddie. Eventually it would be Freddie and not the nurse on the bed, but they scrapped that because it just didn't. It was that actress with the prosthesis on her face, and it's like, well, it's not Robert, so it's just not going to work like they originally had planned. And funny enough, that the guy that was plays Joey, it was kind of the same thing, that he was actually the bed was fixed up against the wall, and they had him strapped up there, and he said that he'd actually passed out because he had been up there so long hanging like that it actually had caused him to pass out at one point while they were trying to film this scene. But 3 is where Freddy starts getting more vocal. Mm-hmm. But the humor still, even though there was the one-liners, it still wasn't to the point to where some people feel like later it got more cheesy and more comical. But the way he delivers his lines in this particular one was still had that horror effect to it. So it wasn't going over the top to me at this point.
And the one thing I really appreciate about Freddy is the fact that he did talk, because, the slasher films all started with Michael Myers and Halloween. He didn't speak at all.
Right.
Then you had Jason Voorhees come along in the early 80s. Never spoke. Freddy, there you go.
Yeah.
And I love that he was the first slasher really to talk.
And that's kind of what made him special.
Yeah.
Was that he not only was he evil, and not only was it all about revenge, he enjoyed it.
Yeah.
He just enjoyed it.
Yeah. He started becoming more resourceful in finding the ways to prey on their darkest fears. And that's part of being, when you're in dreams, you're a part of that. That's your part of your subconscious. So him having access to those private fears, being in their subconscious, he plays on that. It's a game for him. And like I said before, he delights in that.
Made me think also, this is one of those things of being a grown up and thinking about stuff you shouldn't think about, or weird ways you interpret things. In this movie, there's like 4 funeral scenes. And the fact that they are able for the person to die and then they arrange a funeral within hours and the next day, and that's the other thing that gets me. I know the suspension of disbelief, but everyone is sad their friend died. But then again, it's at the same time, there's no grieving period, I guess. I don't know, but I guess that's that whole turns into they're fighting for their friends that got killed.
Everybody's dropping like flies too.
Yeah, exactly.
If you live in the land where
Freddy don't waste no time.
Yeah.
Well, if you live in the land where Freddy haunts, apparently the funeral business is a big deal.
Exactly.
So, that they have quick turnaround time.
Yeah.
Well, it's like when Andy Griffith died. I mean, they had him in the ground with a natural burial within hours. I mean, that was his request. And as soon as he passed away, they buried him in North Carolina. I mean, he was bye.
So are you saying, is it Freddie took out Sheriff Andy now?
I wouldn't want to be Opie right now.
We said it here first, guys.
Well,
another thing though, there was a cool thing like the junkyard scene where they go to deal with the bones and stuff. That's kind of neat, and probably for me, because I recently watched the movie 13 Ghosts, the remake of 13 Ghosts, and I got a lot of vibes. I don't know if they got inspired by that scene or not. The 13 Ghosts got inspired by that scene because it was the whole cars crashing and you've got the supernatural murderer trying to take out people.
I don't know. I know that the inspiration, of course, for the Freddy skeleton was, the old Harryhausen stop animation type that was that's where they got that
popular.
Inspiration for doing that.
The Clash of the Titans type thing.
Yes, right. But I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen 13 Ghosts, so I I'm not sure.
It's been years since I've seen.
I mean, it would probably pretty much be impossible for things to not be inspired by Freddy, you know. I mean, it's probably legit. I don't think you would ever overtly have them come out and go, "Yeah, we're absolutely inspired by this" because of potential legal issues. But I could definitely see that for sure.
And then, the big thing about part 3 too is that also learning more about who Freddie is. His backstory. We knew about, from part 1, the child killer and things like that. But we get to meet Freddie's mother.
Yeah, this is where they set up his mother was a nun at the asylum. And unfortunately, she was a victim of some of the crazy inmates and he was a child of that. So, the whole monsters are made type thing, I guess. That's,
right.
Is essentially where they I don't know. You may did more research on this. Was this really supposed to maybe been the last one, or this was the last one Wes Craven wanted to do? Therefore, that's why it kind of feels bookend with.
Well, he had he had some involvement, but not not the full on involvement. He was still pretty much settled on the fact that I didn't intend for this whole thing to become a franchise.
Yeah,
he still had some influence, yes, on 3.
Okay.
But this was also the first film for Patricia Arquette, and she played. She took on the role of Kristen, and people feel like that she's, she was the better. We're going to get into 4, but a lot of people feel like she was the better Kristen of this franchise.
Funny stories as we're talking about that. My next door neighbor, her mother, she says that's where her mom got her idea for her name. That's why she is named Kristen.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So thanks to, so Kristen is where her name originated from because 3 is one of her mom's favorite movies.
Well, I would appreciate that a lot more than where my name came from. My mom named me after a character on The Young and the Restless. Gee, a soap opera. Thanks, Mom.
I was named after a character on Days of Our Lives. So was my sister. So, yeah.
Man, we're all doomed. I've always been kind of salty about that. I even told Mom that, why did you name me after The Young and the Restless? Really, Mom? This was not the last time that Robert Englund portrayed Freddy before part 4. Part 4 came out what year?
Yeah.
88, probably.
88.
Okay.
I believe, yes.
What was the release date on the movie?
Let's see.
Hold on. August 19th, 1988 release date.
Okay. All right. So, yeah. All right. My bad. Oh, I misspoke. It was just 2 months after that then. So let's talk about part 4. Move on to part 4. This is where Freddy this is where he gets brought back to life by a dog peeing on him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is this is where it starts. That's where it went off the rails for me. This is why 4 and 5 are not my 2 favorites.
4 is very interesting. I have to say, of the sequels, I enjoyed it the most. It's because it's like you said, it's so off the rails.
Well, this is also what has been referred to as the MTV nightmare.
Yes,
of the franchise. I mean, and to just touch back briefly on part 3, one of the things that started, the marketing and the mainstream of Freddy really started taking off after 3 was released. And of course, you had the Dokken Dream Warriors video that came out of this. So, like I said, now this is the direction that we're starting to head in going into 4 is the mainstream, the marketing, the type of Freddy that we're going to see from here out. Speaking
of, I got to hit on this. All right. So the Dream Master came out in August, right? Mm-hmm. Of 88.
Yeah.
Well, there was also another song that came out in August of 88 that tied into the franchise, but the artist got sued for it. And that was DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Will Smith. They came out with a song called A Nightmare on My Street, and it also came out in August of 88.
Wow.
And New Line Cinema sued them because it wasn't tied to the movie, but they're like, we want to make a song about Freddy Krueger, but they eventually settled out of court. And what happened is New Line, when they sued the record label, they had produced a music video that they sued him for copyright infringement. And so the video, you can still find it online, but they were forced to destroy the video, which is online, so they didn't.
Yeah.
But they settled out of court. And as a result of that, a lot of the records that of the album, He's the DJ, I'm the Rapper, which is where the song is featured. Mm-hmm. They had to put a sticker on it that says the song is not part of the soundtrack. It's not authorized. It's not licensed.
Oh, wow.
It's not affiliated with Nightmare on Elm Street whatsoever. But I love the song. That's one of my favorite songs.
Oh, the song's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm your DJ now, Princey.
But another group did have, and I don't know the particulars of it off the top of my head, but I remember they actually got Robert Englund to rap on it, and that was the Fat Boys.
Yes. Yeah, that came out in 88 too, but it wasn't on the soundtrack for part 4. It wasn't on any of the soundtracks. It was just its own separate thing.
Yeah. Okay. I just had to throw that in there since we brought up Dawkins.
Yeah, well, we're in the same time frame of the franchise.
Well, like the actress Tuesday Knight, who takes over the role of
Kristen.
Kristen.
Yeah,
she does the opening song for the credits for this because I wouldn't pay. I was looking at I was like that's according to it says it is Nightmare by Tuesday Knight.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I had no
idea. So the opening song, that's what I was like. This, well, first of all, it's very 80s. Like I said, and this goes back. This movie feels more 80s than the previous movie did, so which is weird. But yeah, like I said, I was like, that's what I did. I started. Around this time is when I started doing the research as I was watching too. So, but yeah, I saw that and I was like, okay, this is cool. The soundtrack's really very good for this one.
Do you think that maybe it's because 4 kind of had more of a, the campier feel in a sense than 3 did? Yeah. And maybe that's why you feel like it's kind of more 80s than part 3. Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe jump around again. But you was talking about how this is the one where Freddie is resurrected by the dog peeing on him. The dog's name was Jason. Was that on purpose or not? I wonder.
Oh, what? I didn't know that.
Yes, the dog's name is Jason.
Was it really? That is hilarious. There could be some subtle reason.
Foreshadowing.
Maybe so.
Yeah. But like this one's really cool. Like I think I like this one because there's a lot of, like you said, the 80s campiness, and it's the MTV one. That might be why I like this one the best.
Right.
Yeah, this is where Freddie kind of starts leaving the world of just totally evil and enters the world of. Yeah. This is where the movies turned and people started really kind of downplaying him a little bit because this is where Freddie really kind of kicks up humor a little bit.
Yeah.
But this is where Wes Craven's, I mean, he at this point, he's officially exited,
he's
right?
Totally removed. Yeah.
So basically at this point, the studio is following the gravy train. At this point, it's just
he collected the checks for character possible.
Yeah.
This is also too where you start seeing the marketing with the toy lines and it's funny because you're marketing toys for kids and this man's a child killer.
I'm so proud that I grew up in an era where we marketed toys based on R-rated movies.
No, and we even had Nintendo games. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street wasn't it the first 4-player NES game?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You had to buy the adapter, but you could play 4-player on that. And we also had a Friday the 13th NES game, which I know has gotten a bad rap, but I absolutely love that game.
The thing about them games, like going back some of them old games, starting to get off track, but a lot of them old games, they're not bad. They were just extremely difficult and very cryptic on how you were supposed to do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But once you know what you're doing, they're fun.
Yeah. And another marketing tool that I thought was pretty hilarious that around this time is they started marketing kids' pajamas, Freddy pajamas for kids. Now,
I had a pair.
I freaking love it.
You did? You had it?
Oh, man.
I had a pair of Freddy pajamas. Mom bought them for me. Like I said, Mom was not on board with Freddy, but she was like, you know what? Mom spoiled me when I would ask for things.
Wear pajamas of a child killer to go to sleep in that kills you in your sleep.
Yeah. I remember it very well. I mean, you had the really jank looking drawing of Freddy on there, but he has a glow.
Brock, did you ask for them?
I did. I did. I asked for. I think I got them for Christmas.
Yeah.
I really would like one of those Freddy dolls though from around that time frame though.
Yeah, they came up with the toys, a talking Freddy doll. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I never had one of those, but I did get the pajamas. I do remember those.
Yep.
This movie probably has the most 1980s kill of the franchise when it takes place in the 80s. But I can't think of it. Like I said, I'm trying to remember all the names. But anyway, the guy that gets killed by his waterbed. Freddy comes out of the waterbed.
Yes.
Yeah, it was Joey.
Joey, okay. Yeah. Goes to kill him. And he kills him, drags him in the waterbed. When his mom comes into his room looking for him, she pulls the covers back. There is Joey underneath the waterbed.
And remember, he lures Joey in again by a beautiful naked woman.
Lady.
So you know what Joey's weakness is. It's beautiful blondes that are naked.
I mean,
I
man that age is it's a man that age. That's kind of hard,
Yeah. I see what you did there.
I am not touching any of this.
But as we start off in 4, we kind of picking up from 3 because Kristen and Joey and Kincaid are the survivors from part 3. They're officially the last Elm Street children. And with Kristen being the final one of the 3 that's killed off, she has now passed off her powers to Alice, and Alice is going to become our next hero for this one and for 5. So this is an introduction into this character and what she brings to the franchise.
And the actress that played her was around Birmingham.
Yeah, she was
this past weekend. She was at Atrox Factory.
Yeah, I couldn't get out there to maybe meet. That would have been cool. But when we talk about kills in 4, they absolutely, gosh, just thinking about this makes me nauseous. Because part 4, where we see the transformation into the roach. My goodness. I have the toughest time watching that scene even to this day.
Well, that it gave me that uncomfortable feeling that when you see Jeff Goldblum transfer into the Fly, that's that same vibe, I believe.
I am not a bug person.
Nope.
And roaches, they instill so much fear in me.
The screams that come from any corner of the house, if she ever sees one before I do, it's very loud.
Yeah. I just, it's crazy for me to be in fear of something that I can crush beneath my foot. But these are the absolute nastiest, most disgusting things that I can encounter in life. And that scene, oh my goodness. It does deliver the great line of, the whole checking in, but you can't check out. Ugh, but still, goodness.
Well, it's funny how you were talking about the last movie about how they were going to have the nurse have the Freddie face, which is kind of neat though, where this one you have a nurse, you basically have Robert Englund in a drag as the nurse. So like at first I was like, when first time it gives you a quick glance, I said, that's a guy. I mean, I was like, that's a guy. And then it showed again. I was like, oh, that's Robert Englund.
Yep. That's right. I forgot that was the one where he had the appearance at the nurse. Anything else you want to talk about around 4 in particular?
Other thought I had, this is where also my adult brain kicked in, where the old Elm Street, like the Nancy's family's house, is sitting there in the middle of this very gorgeous, looks like gated community neighborhood. And then you've got this old dilapidated Elm Street house.
Yeah.
How in the heck has that homeowners association not made them tear it down?
Nobody wants to touch
grandfathered in. It's fine.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to touch that place.
Yeah. Let's see.
Do you know what happened there, Bo?
Yeah, that's true.
Nobody wants to touch that place.
Well, maybe think also one of the cool effects. Maybe thing with this one was the pizza scene, where the
pizza scene,
the meatballs.
Yeah.
Essentially, like I mean,
God,
like
that was
it's
gross.
Yeah, it's gross, but it was really cool.
Yeah. Oh, and I did hear something that Robert Englund made a comment one time that of all the sequences in the whole franchise, his favorite one is actually in this movie, and that's the sequence when they find themselves in the loop. And then a constant loop. He said, because he said that is the ultimate realization of being in a dream.
Yeah.
It is that loop. Just a little trivia there, how Robert Englund feels about that.
And also eventually he makes the quote about Alice, you're in Wonderland. Kind of that makes sense now. She's stuck in the dream and the loop and all that. But yeah that's and then as we talked before we recorded, the whole sequence where they basically take all the other children and they reach out, hold him down and rip him apart.
Yeah. The whole thing
really
about
cool.
it is making evil see itself. And then turns allows the souls to rip him apart.
Also, another neat thing. Also, I like how Alice essentially went Thanos, and every time she collected one of her friends died, she like collected one of their powers to fight Freddy.
Yeah,
like she gets the ninja skills from her brother. what was it? I'm trying to remember what's the other ones I remember. But I remember like she inherited the traits of all her friends as they passed.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of neat.
Well, and you know, back in the day, Bo, we would have said she went Highlander.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, after A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 came out just a couple of months later, this is what I was going to allude to earlier. This is, I had never seen a Nightmare on Elm Street movie in the theater. However, in October of '88 is when they debuted A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's Nightmares, the TV show that came on in syndication. At that point, I believe Friday the 13th was in syndication, the TV show that had no direct ties to the movies whatsoever. But then Freddy's Nightmares came on, and I would stay up late on Saturday nights watching those. It was only on for a couple of seasons. I think they had like 44 episodes, but it was
3.
But the series, it was, you know, thoughts that were running through Freddy's head. You know, Robert Englund was in there some. He would introduce the episode and maybe come in after a commercial break or go into a commercial break or something.
Yeah.
You know, he would be there and he would be kind of pushing the story forward of the episode, but you never saw Freddy like doing any killings or anything in the show itself. It was all about what's going on in his brain. And that ran, like I said, until 1990.
Yes.
So just a couple of years. But in addition to Freddy's Nightmares, the TV show, Freddy got his own 1-900 number.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. All these commercials.
Oh, yeah.
That would come on. Yeah. Call Freddy. Like 1-900-860-4-FRED or 900-909-FRED. And you would call and you take on Freddy in a trivia challenge about that. You can find the commercials and stuff for it on YouTube. I think I snuck away once and called it, but then Mom got the phone bill and I was no longer allowed to dial any 900 number.
The disclaimer says must get your parents' permission first to call.
I didn't believe in that.
I remember it being really expensive, like per minute.
So
that's another generational thing we all can understand. The 900 number trouble you got for calling it.
Oh, yeah. My goodness.
What was it? 99 cents for the first 2 minutes, $2.99 each additional minute or something like that.
And of course, the first 2 minutes were all introductory stuff you didn't care about.
Yeah.
They know what they were doing.
Yeah. So, yeah, in the middle of 4 and 5, you had, like I said, you had the TV show, you had the 1-900 number that you could call, and I think you could get up to like $10,000 if you beat Freddy in a trivia question thing. It was.
Yeah.
Look up the commercials on YouTube.
It helped cover the phone bill if you do the whole trivia, I guess.
Yeah.
It was.
The commercial here, it says callers randomly selected by AT&T computers. Talk to Freddy.
So was it a pre-recorded message or you actually talked to Robert Englund?
Robert, standing by to take your call.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
All right, what the hell do you want?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they got put onto a Freddy voice actor or something. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Talk live. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So that happened immediately after part 4. We caught up with Dream Child part 5 a few nights ago. Jess and I had watched the first 4 movies. Earlier this year.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right.
And we just kind of stopped at 4, and so that's why my memory wasn't chugging on all cylinders. But yeah, this week we started back up with part 5, which Freddy is. I guess you start off and you see Amanda, who got trapped in the hospital with all the inmates, and you clearly see Robert Englund.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this is the first one where you start seeing more of Robert without the makeup.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's gee, he looks like Freddy. So I wonder who the real dad is, even though he's the son of 100 maniacs. Yes. But you can tell who's the dad there.
Who had the more dominant gene?
Yeah,
there you go.
Who had the chin. So you see this, and of course, Freddy gets Freddy gets born in this episode. He gets reborn, and in typical Freddy fashion. As soon as he comes out and he's growing at the altar in the chapel of the hospital, he's growing and everything. He's growing into his cloak. Well, little fetus Freddy is running across the floor.
Fetus Freddy.
Yeah, fetus Freddy.
Fetus Freddy.
Fetus Freddy.
He's running across the floor, and he crawls into the sweater and grows up, and all of a sudden emerges as a big adult. And of course, here comes the pun. It's a boy.
Yeah.
Oh, classic Freddy.
Yes. And then we also see that evidently, the mother, the ghost of Amanda is close by, and that kind of kind of freaks him out a little bit because he's not going to confront his mother.
Yeah. I think this is also this is where they kind of start bending their rules a little bit. Like the whole, Freddy's able to mess with people even when they're halfway awake too. And this one, they kind of started doing that also more than him being tied to the dream state type. Like, to me, I don't know. I may just be noticed, seem more prevalent that he was messing with people when they're kind of halfway awake.
Well, the thing about is that he's, we discover in this one that he's using the baby.
That's right.
He's using the dreams of the baby.
Right.
Because people are dying, Alice's friends are dying, but she's awake.
Yeah.
And, whereas before Freddy, because,
right.
Alice had inherited Kristen's power of being able to pull people into her dreams. Yeah. Therefore, making that Freddy using her to kill through her dreams. Well, now he's using her baby. This is the avenue he has found himself in this time.
Which the baby is Jacob. Which
right.
Speaking of which, I realized after watching this movie, the kid Jacob is the same kid who makes the remark in Jurassic Park about the raptors being giant killer turkeys. I don't know if you guys recognize that.
I did not know. I didn't know that.
So there's a little bit of trivia. So I noticed.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know it was the same kid.
Now, this one, it features one of my favorite kills when you've got Greta.
These overstuffing of her cheeks.
Yeah. Freddy locks her in. He's got that spoon in between his claws, and eat up.
Yeah, that whole sequence with her mom and her friends are all the cliche upper echelon of society of how we're better than everybody, and yeah.
And a lot of these death scenes were really cut down to appease the ratings board. There's they said Dan's death on the motorcycle was, all these death scenes were far more gruesome in the beginning, but had to be cut down.
How could that, especially Dan's on the motorcycle, how could that be more gruesome? Because the motorcycle essentially starts taking over his body, and it looks very H.R. Geiger there for a minute.
Apparently there was more issues with the cords and stuff running through his skin. So
oh wow,
yeah. These had to be cut down for some reason because it was really pushing that ratings issue there.
But somebody had to make it if they didn't make it. But the Freddy comic that, what is his name? Sorry, is it Joey? No,
Mark.
I'm getting the names. Mark, his comic that he drew or he's reading is where he gets sucked into it. Mm-hmm. They had to make a print copy of that. That was awesome, man.
And whenever he showed up in that, that comic type, it reminded me of the Aha video.
Exactly, same thing. That's what my note says here. Mark goes Aha into his nightmare. Yeah. That is my note right there.
As soon as he showed up as like that the first time, I was sitting on the couch.
Yeah, actually, here it is. And since y'all talking on Mark, I'll cut on this too. But the scenes that were cut, it said Dan's scenes, cables can be seen sliding under the skin of Dan's arm. A large piece of the bike pierces his leg, and the skin on Dan's head is much more graphically torn off. But with Greta's scene, that had to be cut down because Freddy slices open a doll that begins to bleed, and Greta is shown to have a gaping wound in her stomach from which Freddy starts to feed to her. And then we're talking about Mark's death scene was also cut down. Freddy turns him into paper and shreds him before beheading him. The decapitation scene was deleted from the original version.
Well, so I kind of like the toned down version. I like that with it being like him shredding him in the paper. Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, with us going to conventions and stuff, why has we need more people doing Mark's superhero character and Super Freddy? Why is no one has done a Super Freddy costume? Why have I not seen this at a convention?
Oh, you know what? I thought the same thing when Super Freddy came on the screen. I'm like, well, look, I'm a guy of size. I could probably do that.
I like that. That was like, man, that was really cool. And that, like I said, that's what this one was really, really cool with that. Like you said, just the imagery. But like, there's a lot of stuff I'm like, why has no one done this? This is cool.
And Mark was supposed to be the guy that plays him. He originally wanted to be a little more goth than what he was, but he was kind of a counterpart to Greta. So they try to, make him look a little more, I guess, why he's a comic book nerd, to kind of give him that more preppier look with the blonde hair and stuff. So
I also like that his whole sequence with Mark, with him being in black and white, give Freddie that kind of that classic Universal monster feel to it. Like you see him, it's an old black and white monster movie. So that was kind of cool to see Freddie kind of being himself in a black and white setting.
Yeah.
Any other notes on the fifth one?
Jacob with all his Freddie aesthetics and his very deep voice there at the end with the child.
Yes.
That was when I realized he was the kid from Jurassic Park, because I don't know why it was. I don't know, but yeah, that was it. But for 5, I mean, it's a trippy movie. This one's probably visually wise, it's the most trippy to me. You got the comic book scene, you got the motorcycle death, like it's very wild.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you want trippy? Trippy is in this next one in Freddy's.
The
God of the Vita.
Freddy.
Oh man, yes.
Iron Butterfly comes in. But yeah, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare is the first one that I ever saw in the theater, and that came out in 91.
That movie turned 30 this year, so
my goodness.
Gosh.
Or it turns 30, but in the first opening minutes of the movie, it says this takes place 10 years from now. So technically, is this movie supposed to take place in 2001? If I'm interpreting it right, because that's what it said in the opening thing.
I don't know.
Yeah, didn't know that. Hadn't really thought about that.
I hate that it took me forever, but I had to get of age, to go see these in the theaters, and like somebody over here on the couch.
Well, I had an adult accompanying me to part 3. So.
Yeah.
Your mom bought you the stuff, but she wouldn't take you to see it.
Exactly. And actually, she dropped me off at the theater, let me see this on my own.
Oh, wow.
Let's see, 91, I was 15. So, and I looked older, than I looked about 17 at that time. So they didn't card me. Like I've said in the previous episode, they didn't care either.
I would say, they were probably teenagers. They were probably 4 or 5 years older than you at the most. Right? Go watch it.
Yeah. But
have fun, kid.
Yeah.
I remember walking up to the box office there in Enterprise, Alabama, and going up to see the movie, and they said, okay, here's your ticket and here's your pair of 3D glasses. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, 3D? This movie's in 3D? They said, well, just wait and see. When you get in there, you'll find out. Like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
But they told you at the beginning of the movie, there's going to be a spot in the movie where you put on your 3D glasses. You'll know it when you see it. And so got those tickets, went in, and just started off. And they had a lot of guest spots in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. that was a surprising thing for me, being the first time I watched it. Yep. I mean, not even 15 minutes of movie in the movie, you get Roseanne Barr and Tom Arnold.
Yeah. Yeah, back when they liked each other. And
yeah.
Because that was Tom riding Roseanne's coattails at that time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and then Alice Cooper played Freddie's dad.
Yeah, that was awesome, especially after me seeing him earlier this week in concert. Yeah. So that was kind of a neat little thing for me. I was like, I knew he was in it, but I wasn't thinking about it. And then boom, I was like, oh, there's Alice. Or Vincent, excuse me.
And there also is a little callback. We get a little cameo appearance from Johnny Depp in this one as well, too.
Yeah, so that was really cool.
I guess that's what we'll lead into when we talk about the trippy.
Yeah.
Well, this was the one. Like, I think it's kind of good that it doesn't take itself as seriously with some of its stuff. It lets the campiness be great. Like, of course, like I recognize, maybe think with other people in this movie. Of course, I recognize Breckin Meyer in this movie. Of course, he was very young.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's got a big part in the movie.
He and I don't know if I'm gonna pronounce his name correctly or not, but Yaphet Kotto, Parker from Alien, he plays the character Doc in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So now it's cool to see him take on Xenomorphs and now Freddy.
Right.
I mean, that's the logical move, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the one where they introduced that Freddy's got a kid.
Right.
And
yeah,
and the whole time as you're watching it, the one kid who gets Freddy's driving a bus, and he gets stuck to the front of the bus, and then Freddy slams on the brakes because he can't go into the real world, I guess. But he goes flying off the front of the bus and crashes through. He can't enter into. Is it can't enter into or can't leave Springwood?
He couldn't leave Springwood, I think, is what was his thing.
So at the town line is where he flies off the front of the bus.
Right. He wakes up. He doesn't know who he is. He wakes out, outside of Springwood. So he's suffering from amnesia. That's when he comes across the shelter for the youth that are in there. And, basically, Freddy's sent him, in search of more teenagers to bring back.
Yeah, because there's none in Springwood anymore.
Right. He's killed every kid. He's killed every teenager in the town at this point.
And the whole town has gone nuts. So it is like everyone is completely insane in that town.
Yeah, because they're all missing the kids. Remember when this town was full of kids? But the kid, Carlos, who couldn't hear, who a hearing aid, he was played by Ricky Dean Logan, who was also in Back to the Future Part 2. He played, I don't know how they pronounce it, Part 2, Data.
One of Griff's
gangs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He was also in Needles' gang in Back to the Future Part 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was Ricky Dean Logan.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
As a person who has, not the greatest hearing in the world, this Carlos spoke to me.
Well, and then the death by hearing aid might be another one of the more wild kills of the franchise.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
Poor guy. Getting Freddy's nails on the chalkboard.
Oh, like I said, that's one of the comical. It's a comical kill, but it's really cool because he starts with a little tiny chalkboard and then he
stretches it out a little more.
Yeah,
stretches it out a little more. Yep.
And I was like, oh no, he's not going to do this. Oh no, and then he did.
It has to be one of my favorite parts of Freddy's Dead is Breckenmeyer being addicted to video games.
Oh yes,
and it's as children of the 80s and 90s when Freddie looks down and his glove turns into the power glove.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of
now
course,
you're playing with power. Yeah.
Playing with power.
Yes. Oh, it was so wonderful.
Making him jump everywhere and hit his head on the ceiling. Boing, 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 boing,
yeah.
boing.
Boing, boing, boing,
oh,
boing.
Man. Yeah, this is very cartoony, but it was okay with it cartoony.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the power glove. NECA has a license for the Nightmare on Elm Street figures, and I've got a few of them, but the one I don't have that I need to get, it's kind of pricey at the moment, so it'll be a while, but is Freddy with the power glove.
Oh, they did do that one?
They did.
That's awesome.
A few years ago they did, and Freddy's face is not the best sculpt on that figure because he's got that the bug-eyed, puffy cheek, like he's hitting the boing, boing, boing. But yeah, they did release the Power Glove figure, and I've got to get it. I think I could probably snag it for about $80 or so right now.
Another little thought I had on this, well, of course, we're talking about his daughter, Maggie. I swear Maggie was Dana Scully before Dana Scully was a character.
You're right.
I don't know if Chris, because I got a lot of Dana Scully feel from her character. And this is precedes the X-Files by at least 2 or 3 years.
As we've been talking about, Freddie did have a kid, and turns out that it was Maggie. It was not the other character.
He thought Freddie had kept him alive, thinking that he was the kid. Yeah, that's why he was thinking Freddie kept him alive for so long.
And it all goes, in order to take Freddie out of this, when you think Freddie's dead for good, it goes back to Maggie's got to jump into the dream world and get him and hold on to him and bring him out. But as she's in the dream world, that's where she, Doc hands her a pair of 3D glasses and is like, this is, you're going to need these, and they can be whatever you want them to be. And so as she gets into the dream world, that's where you see her put on the glasses. And in the theatrical release, that was your cue. Okay, put them on. And that's when the movie went to the old blue and red 3D during that entire sequence. And it's kind of like Jaws 3D for me these days when they show the movies and they're not in 3D and they have all the props and everything coming up close to the camera.
Well, the first thing she does, she looks at her hand like it's the first shot. She's I guess to kind of,
Right.
Yeah. And
ooh, this is 3D.
And they didn't include the on the Blu-rays. They did not include the 3D glasses. And of course, if you watch it on HBO Max or whatever streaming service, it's not in 3D. However, I do have the DVD box set, which did include the glasses, and that section of the movie is in 3D.
Yeah. Made me think with this section. Also, this movie introduced something kind of different with Freddie. Also, beside him having the kid, was these nightmare gods type monster things.
Yeah, the ones that gave him the powers.
Right.
Yeah. Like they're like you would think for it to be the final entry in the series, they introduced a lot of new things that could have, really, if they really wanted to carry on, they could have.
Yeah, I mean, they went back and dived more into backstory again.
Yeah.
Especially with the realization that Freddie has a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And even taking it back to where, she's part of the part of the sequence too, where she puts on the 3D glasses, that she's getting into his mind. Yeah. So she gets to go back and she sees these bits and pieces of his history from being, the kid, and the scene with Alice Cooper being his dad and inflicting pain on him, and these things that have happened in his life.
One thing they didn't touch on though is like it's mentioned in there towards the end of the movie. Of course, it is towards the end of the movie, but like the kids that died when they went to Springwood, nobody remembered them. Breckenmeyer's character, Carlos, when they came back to the asylum, like they were like, "Who?"
Yeah, never existed. Yeah. Right.
So like on top of killing them, he erased them from existence.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, so that comes. You were talking about earlier. Sorry, I'm going over my notes, but you were talking about this is where your favorite quote from the series comes in, right when they come back to the asylum, right?
Right. Yes, because now he is no longer. He's been able to come out of Springwood at this point, and he's going to go for this asylum because he's looking for his next kill, his next round, his next victims, and that's where he makes the comment that every town has an Elm Street. And then
the really rugged looking Elm Street sign comes out of the ground, which that was really cool.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Maggie goes in, gets him, brings him out, and guts him with a pipe bomb.
That's my one gripe with this movie. All right, they take all these weapons to kill him. They kill him. 5 seconds later, movie's over with. Like, for this to be the death of Freddie, you would think outside of the montage of clips they had during the credit scene, there would have been more of a final send-off to him,
He felt he deserved a better send-off than what he got.
Exactly. If this was supposed to be Freddie's dead, this was it for him,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what I would want, but I mean, just something more than that. And also, I kind of think that if they really wanted to, they could have teased that Maggie could have took on the mantle if they really, and that would have been a fun way they could have continued on and kind of quote unquote rebooted the series before rebooting was a thing.
True.
Yeah.
Kind of Maggie could have been the next generation.
Right.
Yeah. And we can touch on that towards the end of the podcast episode, where the future is for Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy. But this ended and everybody thought, finally, this is it. I mean, the title, Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare. Well, to coincide with the anniversary of the release of the first film, they were able to bring Wes Craven back into it. And he came back with, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which was an interesting take.
Yes.
It was very meta. Like, I mean, it's
Heather is married with she's married to a special effects guy with a son, and Robert Shea, who was running New Line Cinema, he's in this. Wes Craven himself is in this. Everybody's basically playing their real life selves.
Right.
Yeah.
And even Robert Englund is in here as Robert Englund.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Robert Englund, is he really as eccentric as he is in this movie? Like, first of all, he after he makes his appearance, he's dressed like a 90s R&B singer, like a gray suit, black turtleneck, and purple glasses. Like,
well, it's 1994. I mean, we didn't dress the best back then, so. But yeah, the whole story focuses on the cast of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Freddy is there's no more movies. There hasn't been any more movies made. Yeah. So Freddy's looking, the idea, the concept of Freddy is looking to, it's like Wes, I think it was Wes explained in the movie that without them making any more Nightmare on Elm Street movies, Freddy's got nothing to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was being able to bring him back and kill him and bring him back and kill him. That's what was keeping him away. Well, in this movie, the premise is, okay, they're not around making movies to kill Freddy anymore. Freddy's like, I'm just going to come into your lives. And so this alternate version of Freddy,
known as the Entity.
Yeah, I would say he was like a demon or type entity. Something.
Right.
Yeah. And, for his claws, they gave him a fifth claw that went on his thumb. In the previous movies, he only had the 4. And so in this one, and they're coming out of his bones, his skeleton, his muscles and everything. That's where the claws are coming out of.
Going total Wolverine on us.
Yeah, pretty much. So, Freddy's got a new look out, these dark, sinister, or not dark, but these sinister green eyes and a lot more muscle in his build. Instead of looking so burnt, he looks more muscled.
Right.
Muscle and skeleton build.
He also wears a jacket too. That's another interesting thing they added to his look.
Yeah.
He's got like a trench coat.
That trench coat look, yeah.
Yeah. So he comes back and he starts messing with.
And this was, this was Wes Craven's, this was closer to what his portrayal of Freddy he'd always imagined for him. Darker, less comical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he had to go through all the movies to finally get to the Freddy that he really, really wanted.
Pretty much, yeah.
Sounds like it. And the Freddy in this one, he's scary.
Mm-hmm.
He's very like
this guy's evil.
Yeah.
But yeah, he goes through and he starts messing with Heather, making calling stalkerish phone calls and starts going through her son.
Right.
Miko Hughes, who of course was Gage in Pet Sematary, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
He was in Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah, Kindergarten Cop.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting use. I'm surprised. From what I understand, Miko's doing well. I mean, they being that young of a kid, being put through a Stephen King movie and a Wes Craven movie. Hopefully, he's doing all right. But it was certainly an interesting take to bring Freddy into the real world and have him messing with the cast of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm-hmm. Right. And all this was coming about, the story was because Wes was having nightmares. So as he was having his nightmares, he was writing the script based on the nightmares that he was having. And that was causing Heather to have her nightmares and for Robert to start, because you see him in that one sequence that he's doing that painting while Heather's talking to him on the phone. So they both have seen this version of Freddy. So evidently he's in his nightmares just as much too.
Speaking of the painting, that is the last time you see Robert in the movie.
Yeah.
Like I read something about how they were supposed to have him like killed by like some kind of giant spider thing or something. Like it was something they're like, like I'll try to remember. I pulled up, it was on Screen Rant or something. They were talking about how like the Freddy was going to kill him because you would think in the real world where the guy who played him, you think he would have, that would have been one of his prime targets outside of Nancy or Heather.
Yeah, he had I've never heard about that though. I wasn't aware
I'll look
of that.
it up. I was doing like this because I was like, he disappears after this. You never see him again.
Yeah, because she calls him and he's like, "Yeah, we're gone out of town.
Yeah.
We don't know when we're coming back.
We closed."
Robert's like, "I'm gone.
We closed.
Yeah, we closed."
But is he really a painter in real life? I think that's what took me down the rabbit hole to figure out. Because I guess that on top of the 90s outfit, now he's a painter. Robert Englund's a much deeper guy than I thought he was.
I don't know.
There's a lot of layers to him. He's like an onion.
Hey.
But I kind of like how, the way the story kind of ends is along they kind of take the Hansel and Gretel theme.
Yeah.
Because that's a story that she's reading to him earlier in the movie. So, they use that to tell the story of going into the nightmare and for her to go into the nightmare to get him. And then they come back and follow the trail of breadcrumbs. They push Freddy into the oven. So has a Hansel and Gretel theme to it.
Yep.
I didn't think about that, to press him in the oven.
Yeah.
One thing I did notice while watching this movie, where you're talking about where the horror movie was coming real life, I think a lot of seeds that like kind of inspired Wes Craven to do Scream may have originated in this movie. There was a lot of things like I feel, because I've seen Scream more recently, and I was like, there's a lot of vibes to Scream in this one, the whole scary movies becoming reality type thing.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something, Brock's never seen Scream.
What?
I am ashamed.
He has not seen.
As much as I love Wes Craven, I've never seen the Scream series, and so I told her I would watch them.
It's phenomenal.
The first two are really good. I don't know about 3 and 4, but the first two are really great.
Yeah. Well, especially with the new one coming out.
Yeah.
I really want to sit down and see all these before I see that one.
Is the new one also Wes Craven?
Well, no. Sadly, Wes passed back in 2015.
Yeah, it was a few years ago.
I didn't know if it was like something he like would have written or something like that.
Well, it's tying back into the original characters, from what I understand.
Yes.
The killer is going after relatives of the original cast.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to derail us on that, but
no,
back
fine.
to New Nightmare.
Hey, it's still Wes Craven, so it's somewhat related.
And just hitting on Wes really quickly, I waited too late before he passed away. On his official website, they offered up, if you went to his website and bought any of his that exclusive to that site of the Freddie shirts or anything, you got a signed photo of him and everything. And there's this one really, really neat shirt. I think it's still on the site, but I don't know if you can buy it because I don't know if his estate's taking care of that stuff, but it's just it's a light kind of a heather gray t-shirt, but on the front, it's got the claws coming, like the perspective of the claws coming out of the shirt and ripping down the shirt. And it's just a really neat angle. And that, I don't know if we can still get that shirt or not, but man, it's beautiful. I was about to, I was on the fence of getting it, and I found it right before he passed away.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I don't know if you want to kind of get too deep into this, but I guess just to maybe tie a bow on everything, because it kind of falls out of the quote unquote Nightmare on Elm Street. But, we finally ended up getting that big battle that everyone had always hoped and dreamed for in Freddy versus Jason.
But before that,
hold on.
Before that, Paramount did the first 8 movies of Friday the 13th. And after the 8th one, they sold the rights to Friday the 13th over to New Line Cinema.
That's right.
Which initially started setting this up. But in Jason Goes to Hell, which was Friday the 13th Part 9, at the very end of the movie, spoiler alert,
oh man,
Jason's mask is laying in the dirt, and all of a sudden, up from the ground comes Freddy's glove, grabs Jason's mask and brings it into the ground, signifying Jason going to hell. So that was like, that got everybody hyped, because that movie was not that great. You had Jason's spirit in running around killing people, not Jason himself, which was highly disappointing. But at the end, there's the teaser.
Yeah,
up the mask.
Because you've got those two, because those two were the most iconic. I mean, of course, you had Michael Myers, but I think them two were more synonymous with each other because they were the more supernatural killers, where Michael was the deranged guy that just kept surviving, where Freddy and Jason, they were the big bad monsters.
Right.
Yep. Well, in 2003, New Line finally put it together. And
jeez, that was that long ago?
Yeah, wow. 2003, man.
2003?
Yeah.
We sit here and realize, oh my goodness, it was that long ago. I'm this old, and I was, oh man.
I remember watching all the hype. I remember watching the weigh-in when they showed, like I either recorded it or whatever it was, the weigh-in. I was all hyped for that movie. I mean, how could you not be?
Well, it's got its critics, including some close friends of ours, but I loved it because that was the showdown you wanted to see. And I think they did the movie pretty well. I enjoyed it.
Well, like I said, it did itself well. I like how Freddy needed Jason to do his work, but yet, it still allowed Jason to be Jason.
Right.
Like there were basically two sides of the same coin.
I like I still like your story about seeing it in the theater.
Yeah.
So
like I said,
if you didn't hear the previous episode, Bo has a wonderful theatrical experience with this movie.
Like I said, this will live with me to my dying days. And it's like I said, we were sitting there. Of course, it reaches the part where they finally drag Freddy into the real world for him and Jason to fight each other. And Guy, probably 10 rows in front of me, stands up, shouts to the top of his lungs, points the screen, and goes, something him up, Jason, or mess him up, Jason, but a different word.
It was another 4-letter word instead of mess.
Yeah, mess him up, Jason. And like, I mean, it was still, and I have to say, people laughed and kind of clapped at the same time, but that's every time I watch that movie, every time it comes up to that scene, because this is probably the most watched movie of Freddy I've seen, just because I like it that much. I had fun.
Yeah, the same for me.
Yeah.
It's fun.
The thing is, you I haven't really been saying much. You talking about like a lot of these other movies in between. With me, it's generally I watch the first one or I watch Freddy versus Jason. The first one was the one that set it up, and it was the one that always like brought me to it. But Freddy versus Jason, that movie's just fun. It's just a fun movie to watch.
It's great because like. Like I said, you see Freddie mess with him. I mean, Freddie calling him a big mama's boy is great thing.
That's just Freddie being Freddie. That's he loves to antagonize.
And what I like is it ends where both fans of both franchises are happy. I mean, you both get to see Freddie and Jason just clobber each other, and of course, like I said, we're going spoilers, but 2003, I mean, you got eventually it looks like Jason wins the physical battle, but then you see him toting Freddy's head, and then Freddy winks at the camera at the end. Therefore,
right.
Jason.
It's not over.
Yeah,
but and it wasn't supposed to be over. They had plans to bring Ash from Evil Dead.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. And things fell through. That movie never got made, but they did turn it into a comic book.
Yep. Oh, that would have been so wonderful. I just, I mean,
as campy as like Evil Dead, the Evil Dead universe is, that would have like married like perfectly. It would have just been beautiful.
Think about Bruce Campbell's Ash and Robert Englund's Freddy just hitting one-liners at each other. Boom, boom, boom. The movie would just write itself. You could just set them two down and it would have been like a
just turn them loose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would have been even more hilarious if it had been like directed by Sam Raimi.
Oh man.
Fun fact about another horror movie. I was watching Phantasm the other day, and I don't think it may have been the first one or the second one. And there's one part in the morgue where they're grounding up bones that have just gone through the cremation process. And as the bones are pouring into the bag has Sam Raimi and an address on it. But that really did it for Robert Englund as far as being on the big screen.
Yeah.
As Freddy Krueger, and he is, he's 74 now.
Jeez.
He's in his mid 70s, so yeah, his days of playing Freddy are very likely over. But he has said that if they were to reboot the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, which that thing's been in legal limbo, the rights to it has been going through Wes's estate and some other shareholders. I think they might have gotten straightened out. I'm not exactly sure.
Well, it's so weird. It and Friday the 13th have both had their legal battles with it.
Yeah, and Friday the 13th, there could still go to the Supreme Court. If you don't know what we're talking about, the guy who wrote the screenplay for the original Friday the 13th movie, Victor. His last name just escaped me, but his first name is Victor. Victor and Sean Cunningham, who runs Horror Inc., who has been in charge of Sean was the original director of Friday the 13th and has been in charge of the franchise ever since then. They've been going back and forth through this legal battle. Victor claims, the intellectual rights to Friday the 13th. And he didn't get paid a whole lot. From what I understand over the years. I mean, this could have really set this man up for life to have the legal rights to Friday the 13th and to Jason. So he sued for the rights, and they've been going back and forth. Long story short, the most recent appeal gave the rights to Victor, gave the rights to the writer, but only like young Jason, like kid Jason, and Pamela Voorhees. That first movie. So Horror Inc., from what I understand, has the rights now to hockey mask Jason, because the hockey mask didn't come into play until part 3.
Right.
Yep.
So Horror Inc. has the rights to that. So now they've got to sit down unless they take it to the Supreme Court, which I highly doubt. And Larry Zerner, who played Shelley in part 3, who essentially gave Jason the mask, he's actually a copyright intellectual property attorney, and he's actually been commenting on this. It's kind of neat to see Shelley from part 3 dishing this out for fans, and here's what's happening. So he doesn't think it's going to go to the Supreme Court because 2 different court rulings have happened now on this. So basically Victor and Sean have to sit down and say, okay, we need to make more Friday the 13th stuff. So we got to figure out where the money's going to be divided for this stuff. So if they can sit down at a table, reach a compromise on, okay, we're going to give Friday the 13th another go. You're going to get this much. Okay, that sounds good. You can use this. Okay, then we're going to get more Friday the 13th stuff. It's going to be coming, but they've got to sit down and work out the monetary specifics for it.
Yeah.
So you're telling me we're finally going to get Freddy Krueger from the nursing home?
Well, and picking that back up, I'm glad you reminded me because my brain slipped. And picking that back up, Nightmare on Elm Street has been kind of, like I said, with Wes passing away, I think it's in his family's estate and everything, the rights for that. Anyway, for all this to work out now, Robert Englund has just gotten to that age. He cannot do the physical Freddy stuff anymore. Mm-hmm. And so his idea has been, okay, bring Freddy back, bring Nightmare on Elm Street back, but have Freddy as different incarnations. Freddy would be a specific incarnation to this person's dream or this person's dream or something. Kind of have him as a shape-shifting version of Freddy.
Well, I thought it'd be neat, would be modern with kind of, spread it, like make him spread him out as, with modern day, they wanted to capitalize on the cool kids with social media and stuff, kind of make him like the digital demon type thing, something where he, like you said, everybody has their interpretation of him.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that'd be a way for him to affect more people rather than just be limited to the worlds of, Springwood.
Yeah.
Interesting little thought there.
Yeah. Maybe before we get too far, don't forget to tell your story, Brock. You was wanting to tell your personal story with Robert.
Well, Robert Englund. I love this man so much.
He is awesome.
And one of the reasons I'm surprised I was able to tell anything and talk coherently through these stories, because I'm sitting here as we're I've been going through photos trying to figure out exactly when I met him. He came to Dragon Con. Golly, it was probably... Let's see, this is where I was trying to find the pictures. It was a few years ago. He came to Dragon Con, and, Robert Englund is as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite horror franchise. I love Freddy Krueger, love Robert Englund, and he came to Dragon Con, and I'm like, okay, I've got a Freddy glove with the metal claws and everything else. They're not sharp, but they're metal. And it's a great glove. So I've got it in my backpack, and I'm standing in line. I'm the first person in line when they were doing Robert's photo ops. I'm like, well, I got to meet him. I'll get his autograph afterwards. So I'm standing in line, and they come out and they say, hey, does anybody have a Freddy Krueger glove that Robert can wear for the photo shoots? Oh. And I turned around and I said, I've got mine right here in my backpack. And they said, can we see it? And I pulled it out, and it's the metal, it's the leather. They're like, this is perfect. Come with us. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm in line. Nope. The photographers are telling you to get out of line and follow them. Okay.
Sure.
So I'm walking back behind the line and into this back room. And standing right there is Robert Englund. And he goes, Robert, we got you a glove. He goes, oh, man, this is great. Fantastic. Thanks. Hey, what's your name? My name is Brock. Wonderful to meet you. I've been waiting for this for like my entire life to meet Robert Englund. He's like, oh, great. Let's go up here and grab some pictures before the crowd comes in. And I'm like, yes, please.
What?
Sure.
So Robert Englund puts on my glove. Freddy Krueger himself is wearing my Freddy glove. And so before the rest of the crowd gets in there, we go up to the photographers and we get a few pictures made. So I paid for one picture for the photo op and wound up with a few. Because Robert was like, no, take more. This guy's got the glove. And so Robert's doing it. And I'll post these on the social media accounts. I actually go back on the social and show you guys a couple of the pictures of Robert wearing my glove, and like he's got his head pressed against mine. He's got the glove underneath my lanyard, like he's cutting it, and with a maniacal face. I'm like, this is fantastic. This is great. I'm getting one-on-one time with Robert Englund doing photos. And so they're like, okay, can you come back here and wait a second while he finishes up? I'm like, yeah, he can use my glove for all his photos. No problem. So I go back and I'm sitting there and I'm watching everybody else come through the line and get their photos with me. It was a long line for him. Well, after that, he had to be somewhere else, but it wasn't until like 45 minutes later or whatever. After he was done with his photos, he came and sat down next to me. And we just shot the breeze for like 30 minutes back in this secluded room away from everybody, just me and Robert Englund.
That is awesome.
And he's like, and we're talking about movies and stuff. And I told him, I said, I really enjoyed your version of the Phantom in Phantom of the Opera. Robert Englund he made a version of Phantom of the Opera like in 1990.
Yeah.
And so we got to talking about that. He's like, wow, you're like one of the few people to ever mention this movie.
Normally everybody wants to talk Freddy.
Yeah. And so we talk about some of his other works and everything else. And he said, hey, let me see your glove. Anybody got a silver Sharpie? He gets a silver Sharpie. I didn't have to pay for the autograph. And he signed my glove, from Freddie, Sleep Kills, Robert Englund.
Yep.
So
awesome.
I've got that in a protective case. Never wearing that glove again.
I love that story.
So yeah, so that's my heart was, and on top of that, later that day, I got pictures with Elvira too. It was a perfect horror day for me. That's been probably one of my best Dragon Con days ever.
Yeah. That's a big day for you.
It was huge. Robert Englund wore my glove, and I have photos of him wearing my glove. And a free autograph.
I mean, it's the least, you supplied him the glove.
Yeah.
He forgot his glove and you came to the rescue with yours.
And he is such a sweet guy. You would never think that the guy who played one of the most maniacal, evil horror icons would be as nice as he is. And he was just down to earth and funny.
And that's what
soft spoken.
And that's exactly what
he's just a great actor.
Well, Wes Craven said that about him in the beginning. He's like, I don't know. This guy is just, I think he's just going to be a little too nice. But he did say that he could, kind of even under that niceness, he could tell that he could, take some delight in some evil. In an evil persona. So
I love Robert Englund. The guy is a horror hero of mine. The horror hero.
Yeah.
Of mine. So
I want to say that might have been 2011 because that was the same year Stan Lee was at Dragon Con, and I got a photo with Stan Lee and Robert Englund that year.
Yeah, I got a photo with Stan too. So if that's the year, then yeah.
That's got to be 2011. I'm believing that's what the year. Sorry, I've been digging trying to look through my pictures too. So to help you out because it's bothering me too.
I'll show those pictures. That was a dream day for me. No nightmares that day. I was having good dreams. Good dreams. Well, now the part where I didn't want to go, but we've got to because it's part of the legacy. Well, I don't know if it's part of the legacy, but it's part of the Nightmare on Elm Street world. Is the reboot.
Or remake,
the remake. In 2000,
I still haven't watched it.
Don't.
Yeah.
I want to watch it for morbid curiosity.
Yeah, you need to watch it
because I like Jackie Earle Haley. He's a good actor. I enjoy it. I'm sure I can differentiate a bad movie with a good actor type thing.
Jackie Earle Haley does a good job of Jackie Earle Haleying Freddy Krueger.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Nobody will ever be Robert.
No.
Nobody.
No.
And that's why I love Robert's idea of making Freddy whatever form you want him to be if you're going to redo it, because you cannot pull Robert Englund. I mean, even in Freddy's Revenge, they had talked about recasting Robert, to do a lot of the stunt work or whatever. And the guy who did it he was robotic. He didn't have Robert's, swagger and everything. They're like, no, it's got to be Robert. So Robert's forever Freddy Krueger. But Jackie Earle Haley did an okay job as Freddy, but the movie itself and the story, they tried. Mm-hmm. But, like Jessica was talking earlier about, they had to scale back the child molestation aspect of Freddy and just have him as a child killer back in the 80s. This one went full on. He's in a preschool and he's diddling kids.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't hold back on this one.
No, there was no holding back. And honestly, Freddy looks more like a legitimate burn victim in this. And while I like Jackie Earle Haley, he sounds like Sling Blade. I've always called this version of Freddy Sling Blade Freddy. That's
one of the things that really kind of bothers me about this one is when he talks. I don't get the same... It doesn't ignite in me the same reaction as it ever did when Robert Englund talked as Freddy.
Watch it, but it's not Robert.
Yeah.
This is a remake that should have never happened. It really should have never happened.
Or they should have put a lot more thought into it.
Well, I mean, the guy behind it, Michael Bay. That's
well, there, I mean, he's really good at doing remakes that never should have happened, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. Watch it for what it is and just realize it is what it is. It's a one shot that'll never see the light of day again.
Yeah.
Did it not perform or just the getting
No, it's actually the highest grossing film in the franchise. It was the biggest moneymaker for the franchise.
Is that because of inflation, though?
It grossed over $63 million at the domestic box office and over $117 million worldwide. So it's the highest grossing in the franchise. But yeah, the writing wasn't great, and it was a harder pill to swallow with the actual child molesting aspect of it.
Yeah,
but you don't see anything like that, but it's definitely in the story.
Yeah. Well, they both tried relaunching it and Friday the 13th around the same time, and both of them,
And the Friday the 13th remake, which came out in 2009, I didn't mind.
Yeah, it's not bad.
They really tried to tie up all the Friday the 13th movies and stick them into one.
Yeah, they did basically the first three in one movie. Yeah,
yeah. And Derek Mears, I thought did a good job as Jason in that one, and it's got Daniel Panabaker in it, from The Flash, and I've met her at Dragon Con, and I like her a lot. So, I give that remake a pass.
Okay.
I know a lot of people don't, but
it's hard for me to give the Nightmare one a pass.
You can't give that one a pass.
I guess I'm just set in my ways, but
it's forever Robert. Mm-hmm. Freddy is. So.
Well, that might be one of the greatest gifts and one of the kind of the things, it is him. He is Freddy, but I mean, like you said, his idea of making Freddy whatever he wants to be is a great idea.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's what it is. It's out there.
There we go.
It's out there, but just like all the people who complained about Ghostbusters Answered the Call, the original's still out there.
Everybody's
enjoy what you want to enjoy, but
right.
I'll choose the original Nightmare over this remake any day of the week. But if you want to watch it, watch it.
Well, I mean, I'll give it a chance. It's on HBO Max, so I mean, that's how I watched all these.
Just realize it's Sling Blade Freddy. Got to jump through fried potatoes.
I'm gonna go find me some kids.
Nothing against Jackie Earle Haley. He tried.
Oh yeah, I mean, I get you.
He finally got to play Freddy. If that story about him trying out originally back in the 80s were true, if that story's true, then good on him for finally getting to play Freddy. But his version was a victim of the writing, and a victim of the story, and a victim of him not being Robert Englund.
Yeah, that's what made me think. Talking about the series, like you were talking about New Nightmare, how Nancy and everybody else came back. I also read a thing where apparently Wes was too scared to ask Johnny Depp to come back for New Nightmare Like apparently because he was full swing in his popularity at the time.
Yeah, I'd heard that too because in that funeral scene, you had the guy that played Rod. Yeah, I know the girl that played Tina, she said she was not available, but yeah, Wes was like, he wasn't sure if he should ask Johnny, and Johnny had told him at one point, he was like, man, I would have done it if you would have asked me, so.
Well, they would have had to cough up the money for Johnny at that point in time.
Yeah, that would have been insane amounts of money.
That was 94. That was Edward Scissorhands era.
Well, he did Ed Wood in 94, so that was kind of around his time frame where he was getting more of the serious stuff for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's Freddie Mania still lives on, even though we haven't seen anything new products really. Like I said earlier, NECA's got the figures. Mm-hmm. Freddie was a worldwide phenomenon. There's all kinds of memorabilia out there. I love it.
Yeah.
I love Freddy Krueger so much. It's campy in the latter half, serious in the first half.
He's a great product of his time. That's one thing I like about I think there would have been not another way Freddy could have not existed had it not been for the 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Freddy was to dreams what Jaws was to swimmers.
Yes. Dead on. Very good quote.
Well, is there anything else we want to talk about with Nightmare? Or have we exhausted this subject?
Well,
I don't think we could ever exhaust this subject.
True.
But I think we've covered everything we can in a podcast for sure.
I have to say, doing this, like I said, watching this span of horror movies, I've watched more horror movies in the last 10 days than I probably have in the last 10 years. Because I was like, this, but I mean, it's kind of whet my appetite for maybe watching some stuff I haven't watched before, or kind of going back and revisiting.
Yeah.
Yeah. We, like I said, I watched the first 3 Phantasm movies a few days ago. Just they were on kind of as background noise, but
yeah,
I was able to watch them. We watched Halloween Kills last night.
Yeah,
it's a continuation, but
yeah,
we're not going to get into that. And I'm not saying good or bad about it. Right. It's just we've talked for 2 hours now about Nightmare on Elm Street. We're not going to do another franchise.
Hey, we tried to we talked about 7 movies in a span. I know we rushed through these things because, like you said, we could spend
8 movies.
Yeah,
8,
9 if we include Friday the 13th remake.
It's the spooky season. We got to get it out of our system.
Yeah. So this is the last podcast for October, so we wanted to get out all of our we had discussed going through a bunch of horror franchises and we're like, there's so many. So let's narrow down the focus to one franchise, and we all agreed Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Because who bigger than Freddy?
That's right.
When it comes to horror, Freddy and my brain is king, always will be king.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, with a broad topic of this, doing this in the time frame we did, and I know we kind of sped through things, but couldn't sit here and dissect every single movie. So,
yeah. And don't think that this will be the only horror-related episode that we're going to do, even though it won't be October once we get back into the swing of it. Horror movies are a part of being a geek as well. Yeah. So we may have a guest or two at some point in the future, to discuss horror. And we've got to keep content fresh for you.
That's right.
So it doesn't matter what time of the year it is. We'll throw in a horror movie.
We got to have ideas for our upcoming episode. So just see where we'll go from here.
Definitely. So any other thoughts from you guys before we close it out?
No, just outside of enjoy your October. And if you're someone who decorates your house for Halloween, I want you to know that I love you.
I love you too, Bo.
I'm just saying, one thing I've realized if I'm driving around, more people are decorating for Halloween. It just makes me happy. So sorry.
It's a good thing. And we're going to leave some of our stuff up, for the fall as well. We've got some jack-o'-lanterns we'll probably take down, but we still got fall decor. So we're going to keep it going through November best we can.
Enjoy yours.
Then after Thanksgiving, we'll get into that thing. So it's been a long one tonight. We appreciate you hanging with us and listening to our ramblings on A Nightmare on Elm Street. But like I said, every town has an Elm Street. And
whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
especially during the podcast. We appreciate that.
Yes.
But to round it out, once again, hit us up on our social media at Bama Geeks. That's on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We are kind of quiet right now, and we'll get back to it. I dropped a post yesterday during DC Fandom about the Batman, Michael Keaton, teased in the Flash trailer. Maybe we'll hit on that the next episode, because we all got real happy.
Really, really happy.
We got to see Michael Keaton, at least the back of his head, as Batman. But we'll save that for the next time. Have an absolutely wonderful couple of weeks, and the rest of your October. We'll catch you back here at the beginning of November.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.